Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. I'm joined here by Ben Kenwright.
That is me.
Freshly back from his wonderful wedding with his beautiful wife. Was it everything you dreamed about?
Yes, and we were very, very lucky with timing. I think had it been a week later, we wouldn't have made it.
So you did the ceremony at your friends, you're in Thailand, and then coronavirus starts happening. Is that right?
Well, I mean, it started happening before that because our guests were nervous to fly out there in the first place. You know, there was lots of face masks and hand sanitizer at that point. But the cases in Thailand were still pretty low. They were around about 40. And we had the wedding and, you know, there was no major news of the virus. Italy was getting worse at that point. Well, guests went home and then we went into the second week, had a mini honeymoon. And then things started to escalate a bit in Europe and South Korea. And we started to see, you know, the streets were becoming deserted. There were no tourists around. And when we're getting on the plane, there's a lot of people trying to get out of Bangkok back to the UK. And it's the first time I've thought, actually, I really just want to get back to the UK now. Yeah. By the time we landed in Heathrow, there were more cases in England than in Thailand. And then as we know it, it's just gone it's all gone a bit mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. So I suppose got you on today because you've got good eyes on the industry as a whole. So anybody who doesn't know Ben, he worked in agency recruitment, ran his own business, worked for JobAdder, and now works for Sense HQ. Elaborate on that for me a little bit for if I missed anything.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you got it. You summed up pretty well. So yeah, I came from running a small recruitment agency to then working for JobAdder in the UK when we launched the business here, and then most recently launched Sense. So I've gone from being a buyer to a supplier. So I guess my fortunate position in the industry now is I've got a good vantage point talking to a lot of recruitment business owners and just helping out where we can. So I will try and share my wisdom in that regard. I'm not a captain of yet, daughter, but I'm talking to quite a few. So
yeah, good on you. So Sense are a venture-backed HR tech firm.
We're RecTech, and it
RecTech. What do you do?
Right, so Sense we're an automated engagement platform.
Okay.
So we sit on top of your CRM or your ATS, depending on what country and what you call it, and we automate the manual processes. And we really focus on candidate and client engagement. So this is in the form of digital marketing, right through the journeys that your candidates will take when they're working with your agency, from interviews to screening, onboarding, working a lot of time with the dormant data that sits in the CRM. Very versatile product. We build Sense. We build a unique Sense account for each and every one of our clients. So we've got clients ranging from your high volume blue collar temp agencies right through to traditional exec search and everything in between. So we've been busy in that regard. At the moment, daily Sense is, we're pushing out new products. So our customer support team are working around the clock. We've got clients in healthcare, obviously, who've got huge demand. A lot of it in recent weeks has been around crisis management, just helping our clients adapt to remote work, just getting them out the shit, really. And then, other parts of the market that are preparing for what's about to happen in the coming months, I guess. It's all around survive, then thrive.
What?
I'm coining that phrase, by the way, and I've seen it a lot on LinkedIn recently. I'm sure I coined it first.
Yeah. So just in terms of your geographical eyes, in terms of what you're seeing happening out there, because you guys work globally as a product, and with all your JobAdder connections too, you would have a lot of knowledge of the Australian marketplace. Like, has it just seemed like a bit of a domino effect, one country then the next, in terms of people just getting scared? Or
yeah, and I think we're all in a similar predicament. It's kind of dominoed. Well, I don't know if it's dominoed. It's just, certain places have been behind others. Me personally, I'm covering UK and Europe. But I've also been covering Australia and New Zealand in recent weeks, just whilst we're very busy. And obviously I have a lot of exposure to the US side because we're a US company. But what essentially happened is it hit Europe first. Australia, New Zealand, a little bit after that. Obviously, other countries within APAC were immediately hit, South Korea and whatnot. And then the US, as we know, they're starting to get hit quite badly. So, yeah, I'm just worried it's kind of going to turn into like an international version of whack-a-mole. They'll get it under control in Asia, then it spikes in Europe. They get it under control in Europe, it spikes in the US, and then someone will bring it back to Asia, and it keeps going round and round. But business-wise, I think everyone's been following the same kind of pattern. Europe adapted to working remotely, then Australia and New Zealand did, then the US did. So the positive in that is we'll start to see, it'll probably be Europe that really recovers from this first, and we'll be tracking it and we'll know how to get us out of this shit. And we can replicate that formula in Australia and in the US. So,
yeah, the US is where my eyes are probably the most right now. And I thought, because you're venture backed, what type of messages are you getting out of San Francisco on this? Is it one that people are expecting to come out of it pretty soon, or are you hearing anything?
Yeah, so general consensus in the recruitment industry in the US, UK, APAC, Europe, Asia Pacific is that world. That's it. Globally, general consensus that I'm getting in staffing is that this thing will be 3 to 6 months, right? And it's going to really hurt. But afterwards, the market's going to bounce back, right? And it should bounce back with a vengeance. In theory, the global economy stopped in a week, and it didn't stop. It not like the last financial crisis where there was lots of financial mismanagement and misdeeds. It stopped because of a health crisis, right? But if it stops in the week, then in theory it should start in a week. As soon as we're allowed out of our houses again, we can get back to some version of normality. In theory, the industry will pick up like that. Now, one thing I did get out of San Francisco when we had like a company-wide meeting last week. So Anil, who you've met previously, our CEO, was talking about the capital, the investor capital that exists in the world, and it's at a record high. And that's a lot of that has just been paused, but it's still there, right? Obviously, some investors might be financially hit with this, but that money in theory is still sitting there, and they're going to press play. So, yeah, we just got to, again, survive and thrive. But within recruitment, I've not spoken to anyone that's like, we're doomed for the next year or 2 years. Everyone's like, hey, this is going to really hurt for 3 to 6 months. But that's it, People are worried, don't get me wrong. Some people are really worried about 3 to 6 months, especially younger businesses that are, scaling up. Well, I'm kind of seeing the ones that are most nervous at the short term, a year. Business in the first 5 years that have just got to that really difficult point in scaling up a recruitment business at 10 to 26.
Yeah.
Because they don't necessarily have the deep pockets of a more established business, but they still have significant overhead. A lot of them they've got 10 staff, but they would have gone and leased a 20-person office. So they're the ones that are seeing this. They're very ambitious, obviously, to get themselves in that position in the first place. So they're not, there's no doom and gloom long term, but they are worried about the next 3 to 6 months. But I mean, I think that it's magical to see the whole industry sort of band together here. And you have to take your hats off to the government, putting their hand in the pocket pretty quickly to just get us all out of this short-term mess. And I just hope there's not,
America's starting to put their hand in the pocket, but it's not enough. That economy and that system wasn't built for a pause. And it the way even I was listening to a podcast last night, I was saying that Amazon are having tremendous growth in this period, but it's within like 4 or 5 verticals that are focused on healthcare and supplying healthcare distribution. So everybody else that have set up businesses based on selling Amazon products, they're all on hold, and they're all on fine margins and weak cash flow, and they'll all go under. Like the knock-on effect of pausing the American economy is just horrendous. I was having a pint in Santa Barbara just before they closed down their pubs, getting my last one in, and there's 4 barmen at the bar, and I was like, oh, how's things? And they're like, well, not great. We're not going to be able to pay our rent next month. People are living paycheck to paycheck, and then you stop things for a period of time. Trump has said they're back in business by May, and I think it's irresponsible if they stay any longer out of business. Like, I get the health piece, but there has to be another question on what happens to people's health if all their finances go. If they lose everything they had.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the conversation I was having yesterday. The biggest killer in the UK of men under 50 is suicide. And I'm sure that figure translates to most countries, especially Western countries. I know in Australia it's the same. So it's those type of things that we're forgetting. I don't think we're forgetting, but it can slightly be overlooked in this instance. How is that financial hardship going to have the effect on people's mental health? And a lot of it, does come from damage to the economy. So I think they're going to have to get back to some sort of sense of normality. But hey, being up and running by mid-May doesn't necessarily mean that it will be complete status quo. It doesn't mean that all of the offices and bars will be packed again. I'm sure they will. People are going to be more wary. If you're able to have half your team working remotely, then do that. But just try and function as close to how you were before this happened. And I think it could potentially be like that for a while, 6-12 months, where we're still going out every day to work, but social distancing-ish will still be in order. And
that's going to be strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have 2 kids under 3. I feel like I've been socially distant for a while,
In the South Coast.
Down the South Coast, yeah. It's tough. Working out what's going to happen after this. All these people that have been furloughed, how do you bring them all back on board? What happens to all these big offices that you've rented when you can't fill the seats because you don't have enough business and cash flow to put all the furloughed people back? It's going to change the structure of firms as well, I think. And I can't help but think how many will demand the ability to work remotely after this.
Yeah, so I actually think, at the moment you see on job specs, have flexibility for you to work from home sometimes. I think it might start to flip round where job specs will say, we have the flexibility for you to pop into the office sometimes.
Yeah.
And also, if you're running businesses in major cities, London, San Francisco, New York, Sydney, wherever it may be, I think a lot of businesses are going to start to see that we don't necessarily need all of these members of staff in the office every week, and we can hire better and cheaper and just have a wider talent pool elsewhere. Even working in London, you've got great talent all around the country. So
absolutely.
You've proven this model.
Yeah, well, so I had Joe Mullings on, and he was talking about he doesn't believe in remote working. And he has a point to an extent. He believes that the center of the flame needs to be a very Americanized way of speaking, but needs to be in the room, So, everybody together, you can create more energy. And that's down to having control and that as well. So I think there's merit in that, but I think there's also merit in dividing up the recruitment product into 180 sales in a room potentially, or like very tenured people getting to work remotely. But if somebody's doing just the sourcing persuasion side of things, I think they can do that remotely. So I can see people taking a lesson from this here and going, well, maybe we do need to reduce our overheads and be a bit more flexible. And some of it does work.
Yeah, some of it does, some of it doesn't. I think the reluctance in the recruitment industry of having recruiters work remotely is because we've come from those days of having the sales floor and you're wearing a suit even if you never visit a client, and you've got a bell, and it's very aggressive, macho. Really, I don't mean to sound sexist, but it was always that kind of testosterone-filled Wall Street trading floors, and that's what recruitment industry really emulated. And so there was that, like if you come into the office, you're pumped and you're raring to go and we're ringing bells. And also the fact that there's not a lot of trust in the industry.
Yeah.
I don't trust, clients and suppliers, they also don't trust their staff. If I can't see them hitting that phone constantly, then how do I know they're working? Especially with more junior consultants, I think it's important for them to be, around senior people to emulate. But I mean, with the advent of technology, we can track all of this. We can record calls. We have it internally at Sense. Every call is recorded. We use a system called Chorus that will pick up on certain things within the call. So if I mention, so it will know if someone's asking an engaging question, a prospect question. So it means that management can sit there afterwards and pick up on, the conversation that recruiter, that salesperson has had without listening to the whole conversation.
Wow.
So when you start implementing tools like that, and obviously you've got Clever Metrics, you're sitting on a very strong ATS. You've got, SensePlug. You've got, this solid automation engagement platform working for you in the background to set up all these calls. And then you're feeding it into an analytics suite. You've just got a very good handle on your business. That's when you can afford to have people working remotely. Yeah. And hey, that kind of tech setup is expensive. But if you're saving an absolute fortune on office space, it wouldn't even, it wouldn't be near that amount of cost saving. So I think that's what people are going to start to realize. In fact, they are realizing it because you're seeing people, seeing the need for increased expenditure on tech.
How does the American sales techniques you're being taught work on the British market? Because you know what recruitment finders are like here, right? They don't want your elevator pitch. They'll tell you where to put it.
Hey, do you know what? I've not. I think I never was a chiseled salesperson. I didn't come from.
Oh, really?
the only job in recruitment I ever had was working for myself. I started a recruitment business because I had an opportunity in construction that had connections. Anyway, but so I kind of learned as I went. But that was a construction labor supply, so that was like a baptism of fire and a lot of shouting and getting shouted at. But when I hopped the fence and went to work for JobAdder, what resonated best with recruitment business owners on the ground here was just having a conversation about recruitment businesses.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of would like to think that I've married up the two. I've got the an Americanized version where we are a bit more process driven.
Yeah.
Better organized when it comes to the sales cycle.
Taking some of those rough edges off, yeah.
Taking a bit of the rough off, yeah.
I could probably learn from a bit of that.
They locked me in a room for a few weeks and okay, you wanted to come out.
We've all been locked in a room for a few weeks now.
That we have indeed. I've actually been in self-isolation for nearly a month because I came back from Thailand. I had a cough. I didn't have a cough. I had a temperature and just cold symptoms. Yeah. So I self-isolated, and then I was a trendsetter. Everyone else self-isolated, and now we're going to be doing this for the foreseeable. So,
when do you think we're out of this? When do you think what's your predictions?
My personal predictions? Economically or physically or both?
Both. Go on. Give me crystal ball.
I would say that we are remote working for the rest of April. I think in May, more of us will start to go back to work, but they're going to still encourage social distancing. I'm not sure about pubs and restaurants. I think there'll still be a reduced amount of traffic on the tube. I think they need to can congestion charge for months in London so that more people can actually drive, ease up parking restrictions. But yeah, I think by May there will be some sense of normality. And I think there's already a bit of normality happening for remote workers. The dust settled. The first week was horrible. But now business is still happening. People are still getting out of bed in the morning and making money.
Mm. When are we going? When are we meeting for a beer then? What's the diary like for a suppliers meetup?
My diary is pretty wide open as long as it's via Zoom. I think us having beers. I'm going to try and stretch it out as long as possible. To be
honest. Right, that's enough for you. Where can people find out about Sense?
Right, so hit our website, sensehq.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to anyone at the moment in the industry. I'm not trying to, we're at the moment.
Shut up and sell it, will you? Just sell it.
You can find sensehq.com or ben@sensehq.com. I'm having a chat with anyone about anything. I'm here for good advice. We've got pretty good insight to the industry globally. So, do drop me a message on LinkedIn, drop me an email, and I'll come straight back to you.
Awesome.
My quick word, my sign-off word of advice is around future-proofing. This isn't necessarily to do with Sent. It's a bit of a buzzword when I'm talking to prospects at the moment, and I think there's going to be phases to this. So future-proofing to get us out the next few months. Be ready for the surge in job seeker activity that's coming. And then the fact that this could come in waves. People are going to be very nervous of global pandemics now. In theory, it could come back. There could be another one. And I think recruitment business owners, there's a lot of aspiration to sell a business, scale up and sell. I think future-proofing and successfully riding this storm will make your business more valuable and desirable at the very least.
How can we future-proof our business?
You need Sense, obviously. It's tech. It's being able to prove that you're versatile. It's being able to look at new markets that are going to emerge. How many entrepreneurs are sitting at home right now thinking of ideas, crunching numbers and throwing tech together? So there's going to be you're taking a large amount of investor capital, all of these, clever people at home thinking up ideas, put those two together. It's a huge opportunity for recruitment. So adapt, be versatile, future-proof.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben.
Listen to this podcast because they're very insightful.
Good man.